Good morning, saints. Oh, y'all can do much better than that. Come on. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. It is again my blessed privilege to be gathered here with you all in this place. I want to thank your pastor. He asked me to send to you his love as he is burying his uncle and wanted me to send his love, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all again. Thank you for including my wife and I as family, and we look forward to every opportunity to share with you all. And this is I said this morning, this is a difficult message, simply by virtue of the fact that we live in difficult times. My goal when I preach is to have a nice, smooth, easy to follow, clear, but this couldn't come out this way simply because of the times in which we live and the seriousness and the precariousness of the moment that we live. I believe that democracy itself is at stake. That in Abraham Lincoln in his second inaugural raised the specter that it was possible that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people could perish from the face of the earth. I believe that we're in that moment right now. It is very much possible that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people could perish from the face of the earth. I know that we have lives and we carry business on as usual. We've got places to go, things to do, and people to see. But my admonishment is that it's going to take something special from each of us to deal in this moment. And my tendency and my nature is to look on both sides of an argument or both sides of the table, see the strength in this side, see the strength in that side, and then find commonality and lift it up for us to move forward. That moment is not available now. People have to make a choice. My choice will be clear in just a few minutes. My choice will be crystal clear in just a few minutes, because I believe that democracy is at stake, that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people would perish from the face of the earth. I said this morning that our people have been through this before. I remember in reading about, I wasn't there, 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson, where the Supreme Court of the United States said that there were no rights that a black person had that any white person had to respect. So what was it like when in African-American homes or in churches or in schools or in communities when that Supreme Court decision came down? Or what was it like when the federal government pulled the troops out of the South during Reconstruction and all of that bad behavior that had been overcome in the Civil War came back front and center? What was it like with lynching and Klan marching down Fifth Avenue? And what was it like? We have had a long history. And so this morning, I have a lot of mixed feelings, even as I celebrate the legacy and the life of Martin Luther King, even as we played I Have a Dream speech. If you read a little bit into history, you find out a lot of things. For example, that the FBI had 1 million pages of intelligence on Martin Luther King Jr. He was the most hounded, harassed, surveyed citizen in the history of the Republic. 1 million pages of intelligence. What I know is the FBI sent a letter to Dr. King's house and said the only thing, the legitimate thing for you to do is to commit. He was hounded by J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI. And I know that. All you have to do is read around. You'll find out a whole lot of things. And so we have a commemoration as well. We should. It just our commemoration needs more teeth. That what we have is window dressing. So I told them, this will probably be my last time preaching at this church, but I'll say this, tomorrow during the NBA, they'll have a halftime, and they'll run a picture and they'll play I Have a Dream, I Have a Dream. You see, it's a dream. The real issue is when you start to do stuff to change situations in people's lives, right? So I tried to pull together a nice, neat, clean, wonderful message. It didn't work. Simply because the Bible says we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against powers, against principalities, against rulers, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So what I want to do is, I wrote this sermon in 4 acts. There are 4 pieces. I pray that you pay attention and stay with me. And the first piece, I want to lift, the title of this is A Dangerous Unselfishness. The phrase, a dangerous unselfishness, comes out of a speech Martin Luther King gave the night before he died in Memphis, Tennessee, April 3rd, 1968. I'm going to play a piece of the speech, and I want you to hear it. And this is Act 1 of a 4-act drama. Please play the speech.
Let us develop a kind of dangerous unselfishness. One day a man came to Jesus, and he wanted to raise some questions about some vital matters of life. At points he wanted to trick Jesus and show him that he knew a little more than Jesus knew and throw him off base. Now that question could have easily ended up in a philosophical and theological debate. But Jesus immediately pulled that question from midair and placed it on the dangerous curve between Jerusalem and Jericho. And he talked about a certain man who fell among thieves. You remember that a Levite and the priest passed by on the other side. They didn't stop to help him. Finally, a man of another race came by. He got down from his beast, decided not to be compassionate by proxy, but he got down with him, administered first aid, and helped the man in need. Jesus ended up saying this was the good man, this was the great man, because he had the capacity to project the eye into the thou and to be concerned about his brother. Now, you know, we use our imagination a great deal to try to determine why the priest and the Levite didn't stop. The times we say they were busy going to a church meeting, an ecclesiastical gathering, and they had to get on down to Jerusalem so they wouldn't be late for their meeting. At other times, we would speculate that there was a religious law that one who was engaged in religious ceremonial was not to touch a human body 24 hours before the ceremony. And every now and then we begin to wonder whether maybe they were not going down to Jerusalem, down to Jericho rather, to organize a Jericho Road Improvement Association. That's a possibility. Maybe they felt that it was better to deal with the problem from the causal root rather than to get bogged down with an individual effect. But I'm going to tell you what my imagination tells me. It's possible that those men were afraid. You see, the Jericho Road is a dangerous road. I remember when Mrs. King and I were first in Jerusalem. We rented a car and drove from Jerusalem down to Jericho. And as soon as we got on that road, I said to my wife, I can see why Jesus used this as the setting for his parable. It's a winding, meandering road. It's really conducive for ambushing. You start out in Jerusalem, which is about 1,200 miles, or rather 1,200 feet above sea level. And by the time you get down to Jericho, 15 or 20 minutes later, you're about 2,200 feet below sea level. That's a dangerous road. In the days of Jesus, it came to be known as the bloody paths. You know, it's possible that the priest and the Levite looked over that man on the ground and wondered if the robbers were still around. Or it's possible that they felt that the man on the ground was merely faking. And he was acting like he had been robbed and hurt in order to seize them over there, lure them there for quick and easy seizure. And so the first question that the priest asked, the first question that the Levite asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But then the Good Samaritan came by, and he reversed the question. If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? That's the question before you tonight. Not if I stop to help the sanitation workers, what will happen to my job? Not if I stop to help the sanitation workers, what will happen to all of the hours that I usually spend in my office every day and every week as a pastor? The question is not if I stop to help this man in need, what will happen to me? The question is, if I do not stop to help the sanitation workers, what will happen to them? That's the question.
The question is not if I stop to help, what will happen to me? The question is, if I do not stop to help, what will happen to them? I want to lift into your mind that we often take the danger out of this story. Often when we mention the Good Samaritan, this is a cute story where we help somebody without danger or risk to ourselves. We take the risk, the sacrifice, the fact that we might have to lose something, the fact that we might have to give up something to help. A lot of us want to help people without giving up anything, without sacrificing anything or losing anything. We take the danger out of this story and make it an individual story of good deeds, and we all have the responsibility to do individual good deeds. We should stop and help people. Yes, we applaud this, but at a deeper level, we miss that if it's dangerous or if it costs us anything or if we have to give up something to include somebody else, we're not interested. We want to help people and it not be sacrificial. We have to lose something. And this is why we often ignore the structural issues. And this is why we have so many cowards. There's so much cowardice in our lives when it costs us something. There's so much cowardice. You can look around our culture. There's so much cowardice, so much cheating, so much deceit. So many people trying to bend the rules. Then, somebody gets an award and you find out 5 years later that they had a camera they won the World Series. They got a camera that was taking signs. They win races. And then you find out it's cheating and deceit. What's the character and the quality and the integrity of our nation? Where is it with people that we're willing to lose rather than cheat? Most of us will cheat rather than lose. And if nobody finds out, it costs something to live honestly. It costs something to have integrity. It costs something to speak the truth and not just go along. It costs something to read such that you're informed. It costs something. It's cowardice. We're passive. We're lazy. We don't read. We don't vote. We don't show up. We don't hold politicians accountable. This is a dangerous unselfishness. This is the kind of unselfishness that costs you something. See, I think that we think democracy is free. We think we can just keep going on, don't pay attention to what's going on, don't vote, don't go to the school board meetings, don't participate in our communities. We just think we can just do our own thing and, just do it. And so everything's going to be all right. I quoted ahead that Lincoln said democracy was fragile. My paraphrase. Lincoln said that democracy could perish from the face of the earth. That democracy that's not cared for and watched and held people to accountability, or non-voting democracy or non-participatory democracy could perish from the face of the earth. It costs something. It costs something, you all. It costs. It's hard to be a citizen. It's hard to be a citizen. We want to be a citizen without cost. It's hard to be a citizen. It can be really dangerous to help people. Helping people is really dangerous, which is why a lot of us don't help people. Not all of us, but a lot of us. This is why the massive levels of cowardice. Massive. Okay, so do you really think it's right to take health care from people and have no alternative to put behind it? So people can't take their kids to the doctor like you can take your kids to do you think that's right? You mean we can't figure out a way with all this money and all this genius and all this intelligence that everybody could have health care for their families? That people wouldn't die because they don't have money for the medication? You mean we can't figure that out? I think that's cowardice. I think that's being beholden to financial interest. Without moral clarity. A dangerous unselfishness is what I'm talking about. A dangerous unselfishness can get you killed. Martin Luther King Jr., who was working for peace and justice and love of everybody, was shot down like a dog on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel. His unselfishness got him killed. But we have a nice Martin Luther King Day. Where corporations in America have a nice, wonderful day. And are not willing to help if it costs anything. It's really dangerous to help people. I think that's why a lot of us don't help people. King said of the parable that the Levite and the priest were afraid. Can I get Act 2? Curtain went down, the curtain going up. This is now Act 2. Have you ever heard of Olive Schreiner? Olive Schreiner, you probably haven't. She's a white South African woman who wrote a book called Dreams. And in this book, she quotes this piece that I'll quote for you now. I saw a desert, and I saw a woman coming out of the desert. And she came to the bank of a dark river, and the bank was steep and high. And on it, an old man met her who had a white beard, and a stick that was curled was in his hand. And he asked her what she wanted. And she says, I am woman, and I am seeking for the land of freedom. He said, it's before you. She said, I see nothing but a dark flowing river and a bank steep and high and cuttings here and there with heavy sand in them. And he said, look beyond that. And she said, I see nothing. But sometimes when I shade my eyes, I think I see further banks and trees and hills and the sun shining on them. He said, that is the land of freedom. She said, how am I to get there? He said, there's only one way to get there, one way only, down the banks of labor, through the water of suffering. There is no other way. She said, is there no bridge? He said, none. She said, is the water deep? He said, deep. She said, is the floor worn? He said, it is. Your foot may slip at any time and you may be lost. She said, have any crossed already? He said, some have tried. She said, is there a track to show where the best fording is? He said, it has to be made. And she stood far off of the bank of the river and said, for what do I go to this land from which no one has ever reached? Why? I'm alone, and I'm utterly alone. And he said, silence. What is it that you hear? She said, as she listened, I hear the sound of feet, 1,000 times 10,000s and thousands upon thousands of feet, and they beat this way. He said, these are the feet of those that shall follow you. Lead on. Make a track to the water's edge. Where you stand right now, the ground will be beaten flat by 10,000 times 10,000 feet. And he said, have you seen the locusts, how they cross a stream? First one comes down to the water edge and is swept away, and then another comes, and then another, and then another. And at last, with their bodies piled up, a bridge is built, and the rest pass over. And she said, and what of those who come first that are swept away? They are heard of no more. Their bodies don't even build a bridge. And he said, and what of that? He said, they make a track to the water's edge. And over that bridge, which shall be built with our bodies, the entire human race will pass. And the woman grasped her staff, and I saw her turn and take a path to the river. Do you know that I stand in front of you based upon the bodies of people who laid a bridge? Do you know that it was against the law to teach black people to read, and now I'm a PhD, I read everything? Some people died. No, I ain't talking about, my PhD ain't what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the number of people who died, who laid their bodies, who went down to the river and was swept away until their bodies piled up. And I had a bridge. Grandparents, parents, unnamed people. I keep moving so my children won't have to walk where I had to walk. But it's dangerous. Will you go to the dangerous place, or do you play it safe? Will you make a bridge for other people, or are you playing it safe? Oh, I give a handout to a person who's standing on the side of the street. That's good. But what about dangerous stuff? What about something dangerous like voting? What about something dangerous like going to the school board meeting and said, this is not right for our kids? Will you make a trek? It's a dangerous unselfishness. The question is not what will happen to me if I take a stand. The question is what will happen to them if I don't take a stand. I mean, it's dangerous to get up and say, does anybody think it's right that we separate families at the border and put people in cages? Is that right? This is a dangerous unselfishness. And what we want to do is to have an unselfish Martin Luther King Day, which is good. But the real issue that he raises by his life is a dangerous unselfishness. He's not interested in you quoting a few speeches. He wants to see the speeches that you will do. Act 3. It's strange to me that we'll serve a God who is dangerous, but we're passive. Yet we want God to be dangerous on our behalf. Let me try that again. I'm going to ultimately to this God who was dangerously unselfish. So unselfishly, he came, Jesus, through 40 and 2 generations. Unselfishly, he came, Jesus, born on the backside of a cheap motel. Unselfishly, he healed the sick. Unselfishly, he gave sight to the blind. Unselfishly, he made deaf folk to hear, lame folk to walk. Unselfishly brought dead folks back to life. But guess what our human response was? To his unselfishness was our selfishness, so we spoke falsehood against him, and we contended against him. And ultimately, because if we're not careful, we'll love lies and deceit more than truth, we crucified him. Selfishly, we crucified unselfishness. Thanks be to God that no matter how selfish human beings are, there's another level of unselfishness in God. I don't care how unselfish we get. I don't care if we have concentration camps and kill millions of people. There is another level of unselfishness in God. I don't care the way we abuse the climate and pretend there's no such thing as climate change while fires are breaking out over in Australia, where we seeing climate stuff going on that makes us lose our mind. How is this stuff happening? Oh, there's something going on with the threats in 50 years. What's going to happen? But we pretend like, no, we don't need to do nothing. You know, it's just that's a lie. There's another level in God to cover our ignorance, our stupidity, our unwillingness to change, our willingness to make public policy based on the interest of a few rather than for the good of the whole. There's a level in God called the resurrection. %90 of the people in this country can want something, and big money interests can buy politicians, and we won't see, the 90 won't see what they want. And in the face of that, we have cowardice. face. We're silent. And we know it. And everybody in here know I'm not lying. We can want something for the good of everybody, and a few people that have money will buy the politicians, and we never see it. Y'all know I ain't lying about it. You know I'm telling the truth. Yet we tolerate it. We don't say nothing. We don't vote. We don't get involved. We don't participate. We don't act. We don't march. We don't write letters. We don't complain. We don't take a stand. We don't change where we spend our money. In that speech you heard that they don't play, the one right there that I just got through, Martin Luther King says, put your money in a black bank. Tri-State is the name of it. In the speech, spend your money with black insurance companies. Why are you going to spend your money with people that don't appreciate you? I'm almost out of here. Let's say this. I was reading Jay-Z's Made in America, and he's talking about Cristal. And he's talking about it. Talking about Jay-Z and the whole Cristal question, and they said some negative comments about rappers drinking Cristal. Jay-Z said they changed, and no, they stopped drinking it. If you can't respect the fact that we're spending our money with you, no, we're not drinking that. Matter of fact, we'll make our own. See, that's dangerous. There's one particular channel I don't watch. I don't care what's on there. If Jesus come back on that channel, I'll miss the rapture. I refuse to spend my money. I don't care what it is, what sporting event it is. No. You see, Jesus built a bridge that the whole human race can walk across. He was dangerous. His unselfishness cost him his life. It cost him his whole life. His unselfishness cost him his life. And yet, we want to walk over the bridge. Fourth, and I'm out last. Fourth, Act 4. It's dangerous to help people. It's dangerous. People hurt the people that help them. You do know, of course, that being a parent can be an exercise in hurt. You know you can try to help your kids, right? You do. Yeah, maybe y'all ain't got there yet as parents. You can help, and they will hurt your feelings. And the sad part about it is you hurt your mother and father's feelings too. I was listening to Bishop Jakes, and he has he tells a story. You know, in churches, they have Mother's Day, and, you know, you're supposed to come and pin the flower on the mother on Mother's Day, but usually on Father's Day, they don't have that. So he said they got the bright idea to have boutonnieres, where everybody in the church got a boutonniere, and you would honor a father by going and putting the boutonniere, pinning the boutonniere on the father. He says when he was introducing the concept and talking about fathers, because of the precariousness of being black in America, like mass incarceration, a lot of people don't have fathers. He He says, I realized that most people didn't have a father to pin. He says, a little boy got up, walked up to the front, and pinned me while I was standing there. And he said, you're the only father I have. And then following that example, one by one, grown men and women start coming up, pinning me, he says, till I was covered with roses. He says, I am literally bleeding under my clothes. And I still don't stop them from pinning because it was worth the pain to provide the moment. I'm on my way somewhere. He says, I didn't stop them from pinning me because it was worth the pain to provide the moment. And being what people need is always painful. And so it wasn't strange to me, he says, that I was bleeding under my clothes because I've always been bleeding under my clothes. And this is a good illustration of what dangerous unselfishness looks like, what ministry looks like, what helping people looks like. The roses they pin on you creates bleeding in places they do not see, and yet we stand there. And we wear the rose. And when we get home, we wipe the blood. That's what it means to be a parent. That's what it means to be a citizen. That's what it means to be a Christian. That's what it means to be family. Every now and then, they'll pin roses on you, and they'll stick you, and you'll be bleeding, and you go home when nobody sees and wipe the blood. This is a dangerous unselfishness. This is what it takes to cut a path so that thousands will follow you, and thousands upon 10,000s will beat the ground flat beneath your feet. This is, some of us will be swept away. Some of us will be lost. Martin King lay dead on a balcony in Memphis, loving people. Jesus lay dead on the cross at Calvary. And the only redemption there is, there's a God somewhere who heals all of our wounds and binds up all our diseases. And so out of the power and the grace of this God, we say stuff like, a lie can't live forever. Truth that's crushed to the earth will rise again. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future. And behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadows, keeping watch over God's own. We've said things like, walk together, children. Don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. We said stuff like Paul and Silas, bound in jail, had no money to go their bail. Paul and Silas began to shout. The doors popped open and all walked out. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. We say stuff like the way is slow. The way to freedom and justice is slow. And we've got so far to go. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. There, I think the lyric said, there is no human that can veil the glory of a human soul. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. I want you to know today that the only way we're going to beat this behemoth is by dangerous unselfishness. The only way we're going to move to a land of freedom and justice and love for all people is by dangerous. Some of us will be swept. Oh, but there will be a bridge. This is why, my brothers and sisters, that I believe today that I don't care what forces of spiritual wickedness are placed in what high places, that God is still on the throne. God. And if we raise our voices and raise our votes and raise our feet and raise our generosity and raise our love, thousands upon thousands will march to the land of freedom. This then, my brothers and sisters, is the word of God. It is given to the people of God. Let everybody that's got ears hear what the Spirit is saying to the church. Amen. Amen. Why don't you? Yeah, thank you all. Why don't you stand? I know. See, this is not what you expected when you came to church, right? But this is what we need. Will you stand for what's right? Will you stand for justice? Will you stand, or will we be scared? Will we be cowards? I told them this morning that in God helps me get my courage. As a matter of fact, when they pinning roses on me, and I have to go home and wipe the blood, ain't nobody but Jesus give me a towel. Jesus will say, I've been there. I know how it feels. Jesus will say, but keep on going. Keep doing. Keep teaching. Keep mentoring. Keep voting. Keep going down to City Hall. Keep raising your voice against police violence. Stand up for truth. Stand up for what's right. Love justice and mercy and compassion. And the God who is the God of love and mercy and justice and compassion will be your guide and will be your keeper. I think we're going to sing in just a moment. A wonderful change has come over my life. I'm a witness in God with Jesus. I'm a recipient of so much gracious unselfishness from God. How dare me get a PhD and sit around and don't help nobody else get a PhD? Come on, somebody. How dare me get a scholarship? Don't pay anything. Go to school, but I won't turn back around and make a scholarship available to somebody else. What are you talking to me about? Then we raise our hands and say, oh, I just love Jesus. I love Jesus. I know you love Jesus. Now let's do some of Jesus' work. Provide a scholarship for somebody else. If you get to be HR, open the door so people can come through. God give you a little money, be a philanthropist. Help people. Do something dangerous. If it don't cost you anything, A wonderful change has come over my life. When I was pastoring, I used to say this: I like who I am and I like who I'm becoming. You see, when you do this kind of stuff, you like yourself. So if you want to raise your self-esteem, help somebody else. If you broke, be generous to somebody else. If you went through the path and you got a GED and now you got some big corporate job, then you ought to be teaching in the GED program to help somebody else get up the ladder. I don't believe that we have to be a handout people. I don't believe that we have to have our hand out to the government. Matter of fact, I don't want to have my hand out. I'm able-bodied. I can get a job. I can start a business. I am smart, intelligent, gifted, and creative. I don't have to beg anybody for anything. I don't have to necessarily, I know that people go through difficulties. I'm not being disparaging. I'm not waiting for the government to send me a check. This is the power of Almighty God. I'm a citizen. I'm a citizen. I vote. I pay attention. I read. I write. I take stands. I take positions. I'm dangerous. The doors of the church are open. How'd I go from that to the door? Because only God makes me like that. Amen. In and of my own self, I'd be a coward. But God, a wonderful change has come over me. The doors of the church open all over this building. A wonderful change. I'm a grown-up. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a philanthropist. A wonderful change has come over me. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a blesser of people. I bless people. A wonderful change from God has come over me. He changed. You know, I've been stuck. I've been pinned with roses. But I'm still helping people. A change. God has changed my life. Let me tell you this. I went to a Big Ten college, and I was trying to get to law school. So I was taking they have a test where they measure your skills and get you ready for the law school admissions test, the LSAT. So I took the little test. I was sophomore, and you meet with the advisor, professor. I walked up in there and he said, your scores suggest that you'll never be better than a C- student at this school. He said to me, before taking the LSAT, I needed remedial English, remedial reading. I needed remedial everything. I'm sitting there looking at him. He said, matter of fact, how did you get in this school? I don't know about you. I had a 20 on the ACT, and the school average was 28. And in my neighborhood, a 20 was balling. They had some 12s and some 10s in my neighborhood. So I thought, when he said, hurt my feelings. I said, sir, your scores do not measure heart and desire. I went from remedial classes to a PhD. I think God's in that mix somewhere. That's what I'm talking about, saints. What God will do in your life. What God will do. What God will do. What God will do. I need to find that professor and send him a thank you note. Thank you for motivating me. Thank you for helping me to get God in my life at a deeper level. Thank you for letting me know it ain't going to be easy, that I have to put the nose to the grind and the butt to the seat. I have to show up in the library. I couldn't be partying and smoking drugs and all that foolishness. I had to do something that was constructive with my time just to prove you wrong. I'm out of here. I'm really done. We're going to sing this. And if God has ever done anything like change your life, I mean, you ought to be singing with me, because if I'm anything, it ain't me, it's what God has done in me. It's this Savior who laid a path with his body so that I could walk across to the land of freedom. I like my life. I like what's happening to me. I love my family. I love what's going on in my life. And ain't no devil in hell gonna steal that, because the world didn't give it to me and the world can't take it away. Jesus. One last time or two, a change. Anybody been changed? Change.